Hello and greetings to all. I had been wanting to put together this video to give more information as to what Huitzilopochtli means to me, what he meant to the ancients, and what he can mean to us as decolonizing Chicanos. Now, to the many of you who are familiar with Aztec mythology, the name of Huitzilopochtli might resound in the likes of ruthless god of war, who exacted the sacrifice of countless victims whose heart was torn out of their chest while still pulsating. But one of the main objectives of decolonizing is overcoming the stigma through which the colonizers sought to demonize our ancient customs and traditions. This is my rendition of Mr. Huitzilopochtli. It's pretty much a compilation of various depictions of him, but some of the elements are constant, such as his blue skin, his hummingbird headdress, the fine plumage, and a very stoic face. Now, there's a constant element in a lot of these ancient tales of a cultural hero being born, so to speak, and that is that they're centered around naturally occurring phenomena. The birth of Huitzilopochtli is on the 21st of December. What else occurs on that date? The winter solstice. To get more information as to the etymology of the word solstice, sol, to my Spanish speakers and Latin connoisseurs, is sun, while stis comes from sistere or stit, which means to stand still. On its southward trajectory, the sun pauses slightly before continuing a northward movement. This is reminiscent of the peculiar flight of the hummingbird, who is able to not only fly forward, but backward, downward, upward. And this is pretty much a personification, an exemplification of willpower, since the hummingbird is an animal attributed to Huitzilopochtli, who is a force of willpower. The name Huitzilopochtli essentially comes from Huitzil, from Huitzilin, which is hummingbird, and a Pochtli to the left. One of the first questions that I like to address is, why should it matter? It should matter because our morale as Chicanos and persons of Mexican-American descent, our morale is not a very auspicious one. It's not a very good one. And the reason for that is because the identity that's been handed down to us and force-fed to us from an early age is composite of various factors that are extremely discordant from one another. On one end, our language comes either from Spain if we speak Spanish, from England if we speak English, or God forbid Spanglish, French, and whatnot. Our religion is also either Roman Catholic or Protestant, as well as a lot of our customs. Well, there's a bit of a discordance with the fact that our ethnic makeup does not reflect these values, and despite the indigenous elements peppered here and there, oftentimes we are mostly indigenous or not necessarily Eurocentric. Just like it worked for the ancient Hebrews, that despite having been dispersed throughout the entire world, their allegiance, particularly ceremonially, when they practiced the Hebrew language, their customs stayed thousands of years to the ancient Israelites. Regardless of whether, there's veracity to these ancient tales of their origins or not, they maintain a strong sense of ethnic identity. Why? Because their religion, their ethnicity, their language, it's all connected, as I've mentioned, in something called ethnic identity. As for us Chicanos, we're just a motley bunch of elements. We speak Spanish, which is from Europe. We come from indigenous heritage, which is from Anahuac. It's just a major discordance. Now, Huitzilopochtli, contrary to being the god of war, he is actually it epitomizes the war that goes on within us, of willpower, of seeking to further our heritage to our posterity. We're going to speak about that in videos to come, but for now, I want to begin discovering the tale of Huitzilopochtli. Now, his mother was Coatlicue. Coatlicue, the word comes from coat, which is serpent, and ique, essentially skirt of serpents. And at one point, she was a beautiful maiden. She was married to Mixcoatl, which is Quetzalcoatl's father. She gave birth to a lot of the ancient gods, which are said to represent the stars and a lot of other aspects of the universe. At one point, Mr. Mixcoatl decided to go out, and Coatlicue followed him. Well, she found out that he was cheating on her, so in a fit of rage, she killed him. Chimalba managed to escape somehow. As an act of penance, she confined herself, or was confined, to the service at the temple, where she swept. Now, sweeping was both an act of penance and repentance for what she had done, and also as a way of rendering service to these gods or deities who inhabited these temples. Now, God and deity is used here loosely, since we are going to emphasize the fact that it has nothing to do with the concept of gods from the old world. We're going to discuss that in videos to come, but I do encourage you to look into what this actually meant to the ancients. This is a homework that you can do yourself as a decolonizing person. Well, one day there's varying accounts as to whether she found the feather or group of feathers, or whether it fell in her bosom. Regardless, she came across this feather or feathers. Beautiful feathers coming from the sky. We're also going to talk about that symbolism in the videos to come, because it's going to be a multiple part. That way I don't compile too much information in just one video. Well, she decided to keep it in a safe place while she continued her duties. Upon completing her task, she couldn't find the feathers. However, she did find out that she was with child. Now, this is just one more constant element in these tales, in that there's a miraculous conception and birth of this god child, which is normally a son. So after that, her children, who are said to have been 400, and again, not one woman can have 400 children. This is all metaphorical, and we are going to dissect the tale, so hang tight. Headed by her older daughter, which is Huitzilopochtli. Huitzilopochtli is said to represent a lunar deity, a moon goddess. Not to sound esoteric or new ager, but this is her station. Whereas Huitzilopochtli is a solar, a sun deity, to represent that energy of the sun. Well, her children found out about her pregnancy, and they were completely upset, since their mother was supposed to be consecrated to the temple, and here she is having a baby, and who knows who the father is. So they conspire to kill her. This is where we're going to go ahead and pause and continue forth. Just remember that we left off where Huitlico finds out that she's about to get murdered by her children. So stay tuned for the next episode of this novella, where we'll discuss the tale of Huitzilopochtli further. And I leave you with this, warm greetings and blessings to all.